community. Welcome to another interview. We are today with Peter Wang. So let's start with the first question. So you co-founded Anaconda. So with a vision of democratizing, the data science, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about that journey, that early moment when you start working with your partner and so on, your team and your friends? Like how did it start?
You know, we all really started in the scientific Python community. And Python was, I think, making really good strides in adoption among scientists, engineers, and people like that. But through our work, we were getting called to do consulting in more and more places that were not really scientific. They were numerical computing, they were more data analysis, more business modeling, things like that. And so we had the realization that maybe the scientific Python library and the set of tools could be useful for much, much more than just that, just the science. And so we started the company, with a mission really to push the use of Python for doing broader data analysis. A little bit of it was, I would say a lot of it is because we like Python. Should be no surprise. I found it to be a very pleasant language. I know many other languages, but I enjoyed using Python. I really like the community of people who are making these tools. And I thought that, for the future, this was back in 2010, right? 2011 timeframe. So what we could see was that there was going to be much more need for doing advanced analytics. And we thought that Python would be a great language to do that in. And we knew that there were other things that were needed to be done to Python to make it good for that, but the base was already there. So we started PyData, we started NumFocus, we started Anaconda. All of it was to push and promote the use of Python for data analysis and machine learning.
Amazing. So you kind of you were visionaries at that time. Like we can imagine how it's like the industry right now, and you made it, right? Like a lot of users.
We did kickstart something that became very, very popular. That's true.
Yeah. Well, Conda was considerably revolutionary at the time, right? Like even right now, like with people is learning, they are like, wow, is this working in this way? Can you tell us a little bit more of the technical architecture behind?
When we were getting started at that time, it's important for people to remember that at that time there was no simple way to distribute Python packages that had pre-compiled native code. So if you had C or C++, it was very, very hard to do. So we created Conda as a way of managing and distributing this sort of stuff. And the particular technical architecture for Conda that's different than Wheels is that we have always treated managing the Python language itself, as well as many of the C and C++ libraries or Fortran libraries, all of those things we treated as an equivalent package tool. So for people who use Linux, if you know apt or RPM, it's like that. It's actually a system level package manager almost. Oh. If you use Mac, then Homebrew, you're familiar with that. So Conda is really a cross-platform library and tool installation system that we built because we had to. And so now we have, people can pre-build things into Wheels and you can distribute with Wheels. But even with wheel distribution, a lot of the native dependencies get compiled into the wheel, which can be convenient, but it can also have some serious downsides. And in particular, when people are using Python in business and in serious regulated kind of large businesses, they really want to know what goes into their software stack, and they want to know when something might be something might have a vulnerability or have some security issues. With Conda, you can see exactly which libraries were used to build or are linked into a particular thing, and with Wheels, that becomes more opaque and harder to trace. So now, as a business, we support both, right? But obviously, since we created Conda, we are we have much better support for Conda.
Yeah, of course.
But we're trying to improve both.
Both of them. Amazing. So good news for everyone. So, you have a broad background, right? So you study physics and 3D graphics and also financial modeling. So having that into account, how this broad technical experience shape your experience and approaching to Python as a tool,
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, the years that I spent as a consultant using Python was really valuable because I could see that, the really interesting thing that I saw was that there were many people in businesses and in enterprise environments even if their businesses had lots of money, they were not little poor startups trying to save a penny here or save a dollar there. These were businesses with billions of dollars of IT budgets. But in all of these different kinds of very, very big businesses, banks, oil and gas companies, healthcare, when you go to these big businesses, you'll find that there are a lot of people, we call them practitioners or domain experts. They have different terms in different industries. Scientists oftentimes find themselves in industry in this way. They really don't have a lot of support from the IT organization or software development. So they ended up picking up Python to do development for themselves because they could not afford to buy tools, or there were not tools available. They could not talk to central IT to build massive software systems for them. So they were picking up Python on the edges of the business to then build something for themselves. So this ties back to your first question about democratization, right? Because what we could see was that, okay, Python is a tool that, because the language is easy to learn, many people who are not traditional software engineers can come to it, pick it up, and build something that's good for them, right? So we had a keynote today, and that was about using Python in scientific research in cell biology, right? But that's one example. Python is used in astronomy. Python is used in oil and gas, and banking, and finance, and everything. And that's a really, really unique characteristic for Python. So back to your question about my personal background, I think having that diversity of technical perspectives and made me appreciate more how important it is to have a tool that we can go and give to people who are not necessarily software engineers, right, to help them solve their problems. I think a lot of, I very much live in the software world. I'm a software professional. I've been that for 30 years. From those of us who are on Hacker News all day long or on GitHub all day long, we can tend to have a very narrow view of the world as just all software. We do software to everything. And the Python ecosystem, I think because of the part that me and Travis kind of came through with the scientific computing side, we really got to this democratization part. And that's something that a lot of the other, like Ruby didn't get that. I don't think Perl really understood that. JavaScript certainly doesn't understand that. But the Python community got that, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, that's true. Well, bringing that all of that support and I think it's a mix of interdisciplinary view.
That's right.
Like everything is connected, and the open source community and Python, and how we know that we came for the conference, but we stayed for the community. Is well known that Anaconda has been invested a lot of money in open source, right? And but you are also building like a really successful business. So how you do that? Like, can you explain a little bit more of the dividend program and all of the things that you have?
We had when we created the company, we started with consulting and training, services, support, things like that. I think a fairly common model, right, for people who have open source tools that get popular. But we quickly found that there were some use cases that big businesses had that really needed a product. So we built product for those business needs, and that ended up becoming quite successful. There are a lot of businesses that want to adopt Python, that need to manage part of the security infrastructure. They want to have visibility into all the users who are using Python internally. When you have a language at the scale of Python, you really just do need an enterprise vendor that is the supported vendor for the language. So we have really become that, right? So our partnerships with companies like Snowflake, with Microsoft, in many ways with Microsoft, and then just recently we've announced partnerships with people like Databricks. So there's a lot that we do to just support the enterprise-grade use of Python. That has been very successful for us as a product strategy. And then we take the profits from that and we pay our own internal developers to work on open source. We also have this thing we call the dividend program, where we give hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to NumFocus, so they can then distribute that to their various programs to support the PyData conferences, things like that. And I think that's one model, right, of trying to support open source. I think we've done a lot over the history of the company. When we look at supported open source development, as well as the donations and contributions we've given, sponsorships for conferences, if you add it all together, it's over $30 million that we put into the open source community. But that's not enough, right? That is still not enough. And that's a problem that we keep thinking about. Like, how do we support sustainability when people are trying to build a collaborative innovation commons? It's still an unsolved problem, I think.
Talking about NumFocus and ecosystem, supporting the Python ecosystem. What would you recommend to smaller Python communities like here in Colombia to contribute to open source and help on that global ecosystem?
Well, I think there's lots of different things. First of all, I think just having run conferences myself, I know how much work it is to put something like this together, and I think organizers like yourselves and the whole team that puts on conferences like this deserve a lot of recognition and a lot of gratitude. I know the attendees who come to things like this, they learn a lot. They have a chance to meet other practitioners. It's a very good time. And I have the great fortune of going around the world and speaking at Python conferences or PyData conferences. And what's really funny is you meet completely different, a group of Japanese people, a group of Indian people, a group of Colombians, right? Or Italians at EuroPython. And it's really funny, the Python community worldwide, there is a very good energy in it. And there is a spirit of positive, contribution-oriented, sort of this great sort of energy. And so what you're doing is already so much just to put on this kind of thing and to try to pull together a national conference and put good content together. But when people are doing work using these tools, if they work at a very big company, then trying to find ways that you can connect to other people in your company that are using open source or using open source Python and Python tools, build little communities of practice within the business. If you build those kind of connections, that might help you find ways that you can talk more inside the business. I know that some companies, for instance, they have hack days, they have engineering all hands where people present something about technologies. And so that's something that if you are an employee at a very big company, that's something you can take the initiative to do. And then you're advocating on behalf of open source within your company. If you work at a small business, a startup, you're probably very focused on trying to build your product or trying to get your business going. There's not a lot that you can, there's not a lot of money perhaps that you have to give, but what you can do is try to find some time to volunteer, to teach a workshop, or to run a sprint, or even if you can just have a small sponsorship, right, for an organization, for a conference like PyCon Colombia, every little bit helps, right? Yeah. And so these are I think in every way people have ways that they can try to contribute.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, that conference that I have thinking in a quote. I don't know where I read it. That was like everything matters. And
everything matters.
Definitely, you confirmed that, and it's great. So, you are the Chief AI and Innovation Officer, right?
Right.
So that is the role. So, so you are focusing on Python with AI, right? So, what do you think are specific advantages of the language, and also what Python maybe needs to be competitive against other languages like Rust or Julia in that the AI workload that we are expecting to happen?
So I think Python's competitor in the AI space is not going to be Rust or Julia.
Okay.
I think that Python is kind of good enough for many of the things as a language, but as an ecosystem, we do, I guess the thing is, if you're just looking at the AI frameworks, right? C++ is still there, right? Rust has some, Rust is growing and it's got some adoption and it's nice, but I think in general, Python is already kind of the dominant thing. So it should be looking at how to make itself better, not necessarily comparing to other things, but looking at how its current set of users are dissatisfied with it or ways that we might want to improve it. And so specifically in the area of AI, I feel like there's some aspects of Python higher performance, where we should be thinking about ways we could use the GIL removal sort of stuff, and maybe we can make Python work better on a multi-core system. There's aspects of we have a project called Numba that we've been building for many years that lets you optimize and run your numerical Python code with very minimal code changes. So projects like that I think are really important for Python moving forward. And we have, it's a hard project. It's a compiler project. Not many people can contribute to it. But if more people start using that, they can give feedback to us and things like that. There are other tools, of course, for Python performance that are very popular in the AI space right now. They're maintained by good teams at really, really big companies. They're great projects. But if we want to continue having the future of the language be a community-driven thing, then community members need to be more a part of those kinds of projects. And users in the community should try to drive more conscientiousness about those projects not merely being an open source project from $1 trillion company, but actually being something that is tied into to community needs, works well with other tools, has space for innovation from other people. Those are the kinds of things that I think are sort of necessary next steps for Python. But overall, I mean, I think there's so many people working on so many different parts of the language and the ecosystem. I think there's a lot of really good stuff coming, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks exciting in the future. Yeah. Great. So you are in that network. You just share also, like, there are many things happening. So what kind of opportunities you can share with practitioners, developers, like Python developers, that you can see worldwide, or like maybe focusing in Latin America since you are here?
Oh, well, in general for Python developers, I think we're for any software developer, I would say this, we're at a moment in time when the practice of software development is undergoing a really, really big change. There's no question that AI-powered coding tools will transform what the landscape looks like, right? So if you're a software engineer, I don't think you can expect to just keep doing what you've been doing for 2 or 3 years and be in the same place 2 to 3 years from now. I think if you want to really be at the top of your game, you need to be learning deeper about architecture, thinking deeper about various kinds of things, so that when you're then driving AI assistant coding sort of stuff, you can drive it more intelligently. So thinking, basically, if you're a mid-range, early career software engineer, you might really want to think about, how do I become a junior architect or a systems designer as quickly as possible? So branch out, learn other things which you might not have had to think about before. Learn about databases, learn about some DevOps, learn about front end and UI things. Because what's going to happen is, in 2 or 3 years' time, people are probably going to want to know how, they're going to expect developers, if we still call them that, to be able to do all of these kinds of things, to be able to drive AI, to put whole systems together. So if you are just one kind of coder, that's not going to be good enough.
That's correct.
So that's just a general thing for everyone. For Latin America, I unfortunately don't know enough about the landscape of business or the job prospects here to be able to speak to any particular specifics. But one thing I do think about for non-American or Western Europe kind of countries, I think that the AI moment gives us this incredible opportunity for every country to really, and for the technologists in every country to actually sort of seize their own destiny, right, and really define that. Because I can imagine, if you're here I imagine as a city of 2.5, 3 million people, right? Colombia as a country, it's much smaller than the United States, right? And no matter how much you want to invest in education, it just takes a long time to build as many software engineers, as many IT people as we might have in America or in Europe. But that doesn't matter if you can accelerate using AI tools, right? So I think that there's this amazing ability to just hit an accelerator.
Like a boost.
A boost for digital transformation. And I would encourage people to be just radically entrepreneurial, to be radically optimistic about what they can do. And like just not always be looking, right, to America or Silicon Valley to say what should be the way that things are. Because I think that, when I've visited like India a few years ago and I spoke at Python conference there, they had so many different kinds of problems that were uniquely India related, whether it was languages, whether it's infrastructure, whatever it might be. And the smart people in India are the best people to solve that problem, right? And so likewise in Colombia, there are so many, it's a country, there's so much context, right? There's so much opportunity that it is going to be up to Colombian programmers to figure this out, right?
That's correct.
And so I think my only message really is one of encouragement. That's I think, that's the most fundamental thing.
Thank you so much. And last question, that is a funny one. Where did it came from, the Anaconda name?
Oh, right. So some people don't know this. The company, when we founded it, was called Continuum Analytics. And we ran under that name for like 5 years. But we actually had the product Anaconda very early on, because when we created the PyData, so it's actually started a PyData workshop. We created these workshops to try to get people to come together and talk about doing Python for data analysis, Python for data science. And at one of the first workshops, we were watching people struggle to get installations of SciPy or Matplotlib or whatever. It was really hard for people to install on Windows. And there was one conference, or there's one session in particular, when I was thinking to myself, okay, I just watched in the morning so many different people struggle to install the stack of software. And I'm watching a talk where this person is talking about a Python MapReduce framework that used an Erlang runtime. I'm like, if they cannot install SciPy, they're not installing an Erlang runtime. This is just not going to work unless we solve this installation problem. So I still remember looking over at Travis, who was sitting next to me in the back. And I said, Travis, we're going to have to create like just a package distribution of Python for big data. And I mean, I guess we should name it after a big snake or something like Anaconda, right? And that was that moment. So I still remember that.
It's a big snake.
Yeah, but of course, we all know Python, the programming language, does not come from snakes. It's from Monty Python,
It's
right?
from Monty Python, but
And
everyone wears snakes.
Everyone wears snakes things because, Monty Python is very good. So the early days of Python, there were a lot of jokes about Monty Python on the mailing lists. And the really sad thing, not sad thing, but the funny thing is for me, I guess, I'm not scared of snakes, but I'm cautious about snakes. I don't particularly love snakes. So everyone assumes, since I'm the Anaconda guy, that like snakes are a thing. And I'm like,
you got the precaution.
Yeah, I should have thought about that before I named the product, but yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Peter. Really, your time is really precious, and we really appreciate your time here.
Thank you.
Please keep enjoying the conference, and we will share the interview with our community and with you when it's live.
Awesome. Thank you very much.